The world moves with confidence, but it is a confidence built on assumptions. We believe we understand the forces around us. We trust in our technology, our governments, our knowledge, and our achievements. But the illusion of control is the most subtle and dangerous of all illusions. It does not reveal itself in the noise of life, but in the quiet moments when truth visits us unexpectedly. On July 7, 2025, such a moment came. Not with chaos, not with disaster, but with revelation. What was shown was not a future catastrophe, but a deep reflection of where we stand now. And that vision, clear, piercing, unfiltered, was powerful enough to shake the foundations of the world. Because it did not speak only to institutions or nations. It spoke to the core of the human being. It spoke to the individual who has forgotten how to see. For many years, the pace of the world has accelerated. We have become faster, louder, more distracted. We chase after results and run from reflection. We measure success by numbers and neglect the inner state. In this race, we have disconnected from the deeper truths that sustain life. The truth that peace is not an achievement, but a discipline. The truth that power without compassion is hollow. The truth that a life lived without integrity is already a ruin waiting to collapse. Number 5, life changes us nowhere. Life changes us nowhere. The truth that peace is not an achievement, but a discipline. The truth that peace is not a journey, but a destination. The truth that peace is not a state, but a decision. Life changes us all the time. The decisions are all that. What God showed on July 7 was not new. It was ancient, timeless, eternal. But because we had drifted so far from it, it appeared like a foreign language. And yet, the soul understood it. The soul always remembers what the mind has forgotten. The message that came was not a command, nor a threat. It was a mirror. And when a mirror is held up to a distorted world, what it reflects is discomforting. It shows the cracks behind the smiles, the motives behind the plans, the fear behind the ambition. It reveals that much of what we call order is actually imbalance. That what we call strength is often a mask for fear. And that what we call progress is often a movement away from the sacred. The shaking of the world begins here, not in nature, not in politics, but in perception. When the illusion of stability is shattered, the human mind panics, but the awakened soul rejoices, because only in the breaking of illusion can truth be rebuilt. The reason why what was shown on that day will shake the world is because it pierced the armor that humanity wears so proudly. It stripped away the surface and exposed the foundation. And many foundations are not built on truth. They are built on convenience, on compromise, on collective ignorance. When light enters such places, it does not merely illuminate, it disrupts. When light enters such places, it does not merely illuminate, it disrupts. It causes what was hidden to rise. It causes what was false to be revealed. And the world is not prepared for such honesty. We are prepared for comfort, for routine, but not for the kind of clarity that demands change. And yet, that is exactly what was given. A clarity that cannot be ignored. A truth that demands response. And the shaking has already begun, not in the ground, but in the hearts of those who received the message. Because to truly see is to be unable to return to blindness. And that is the danger and beauty of revelation. It ruins complacency. It ends neutrality. It places before each person a choice. Continue as you were, or awaken. And to awaken is to suffer. because it means shedding layers of falsehood, habits of avoidance, and comforts of denial. But to remain asleep is to decay slowly in a world that is preparing to be cleansed. This is the shaking. The inner disturbance that comes when the soul recognizes it has been neglected, when the conscience realizes it has been silent too long, when the human spirit awakens to the sacredness of time and how much of it has been wasted. On July 7, 2025, it was not the heavens that thundered, but the soul that was stirred. It was not the stars that aligned, but the truth that became unbearable to ignore. And now the shaking spreads, because revelation does not remain in one place. It moves, it multiplies, it calls others. And wherever it goes, it leaves behind a question. What are you building your life upon? Because if the foundation is ego, it will fall. If it is greed, it will rot. If it is pride, it will break. Only what is rooted in truth will remain unshaken. But truth is not loud, it is not fashionable. Truth, it is not convenient, it is quiet and firm and often painful, but it is the only thing that lasts. What God showed was not how to escape the shaking, but how to endure it. Not how to avoid collapse, but how to build in such a way that collapse is impossible. And that is where the invitation lies. To shift from survival to stability, from reaction to reflection, from fear to clarity. The world has heard many messages, seen many warnings, witnessed many events, but very few have touched the core. This was different. It was not about headlines or speculation, it was about the condition of the soul. And that is why it will shake the world, because it bypasses the intellect and speaks directly to the spirit. And the spirit, once awakened, will not allow the old life to continue untouched. It demands change, it demands courage, and it demands truth. In the days ahead, many will forget the noise of the world, will attempt to bury the clarity of that moment. But for those who have seen, forgetting is no longer an option. The world may try to resume its old patterns, but the shaking will continue. Quietly, inwardly, until what is false has no place left to hide. And then what remains will be pure, strong, real. This is not a prophecy of doom, it is a call to return, a call to rebuild, a call to remember. And in that remembrance, the true strength of the human spirit will rise. The world will be shaken, but not to end. To begin again with truth as its foundation. People wait for signs, expecting fire from the sky or trembling ground beneath their feet. But the most powerful signs are not seen with the eyes, and the loudest messages do not echo through valleys. They whisper within. The vision that unfolded on July 7th, 2025, did not thunder into existence with spectacle. It entered silently, gently, yet it carried a power that could unmake delusion. What God showed was not just a message to nations or kings, it was a message to every soul that has grown weary of pretending, every heart exhausted by chasing shadows. The shaking of the world begins in the space no one sees, within the inner sanctuary of every human being. It begins when we realize that the things we thought mattered were never real, and the things we ignored were always sacred. That is why the earth must tremble, because without that trembling, we would sleep until the end of our days. For too long, the world has confused comfort with peace. It has traded wisdom for information, and sacredness for efficiency. We have built towers reaching toward the sky, but we've neglected the unseen roots of our humanity. Without rootedness, all structures fall. Without discipline, freedom becomes self-destruction. Without awareness, life becomes a repetition of patterns, habits, and inherited blindness. What was shown on that day was the cost of disconnection, the high price of forgetting the center. Humanity does not fall when it is attacked from the outside. It collapses when it is empty inside. The message was not that disorder is coming from without, but that disorder is rising from within. This is the true earthquake, not in the land beneath our feet, but in the beliefs that hold up our lives. Not in the plates of the earth, but in the layers of the self we refuse to examine. It is not catastrophe that shakes a person the most, it is confrontation. When the soul confronts its own negligence, the tremble is not in the body, but in the will. That is the most dangerous shaking, because it changes everything. When the heart begins to awaken, it cannot go back to sleep. It is the most dangerous shaking, because it changes everything. When the heart begins to awaken, it cannot go back to sleep. When the eyes of truth are opened, they cannot be closed by distraction. The illusion may try to pull us back, but the taste of truth is irreversible. And that is what was revealed on July 7. A taste of what life feels like when it is aligned. A moment when the eternal broke through the temporary. A glimpse of what was lost and what must be reclaimed. The reason why this vision will shake the world is because it confronts the universal fear. The fear of change. People fear war, famine, and death. But deeper than all of those is the fear that we will have to leave behind the identity we've grown comfortable with. That we may have to abandon our explanations, our excuses, our distractions. And that we might finally be required to live with intention. But this fear must be faced because it is the only path to freedom. We cannot heal what we refuse to see. We cannot rise while clinging to what pulls us down. And we cannot escape the shaking. We must go through it. For it is through the trembling that we discover what cannot be moved. Through the collapse, we find what must be rebuilt. Through the silence, we finally hear. What was revealed was not punishment, but mercy. A chance to see before it is too late. A moment when the fog lifts and the soul remembers what it was made for. The tragedy is not that the world trembles, but that we resist it. We cling to routines that destroy us. We hold to beliefs that poison us. We defend patterns that no longer serve us. The shaking is not the enemy. Denial is. The tremble is a teacher. But only for those who are willing to learn. If you resist the shaking, you prolong the suffering. If you embrace it, you emerge purified, stronger. All, the true challenge now is not to predict what will happen next, but to ask what must change within. That is the work. The hard, quiet, invisible work that no one applauds. The work of confronting your own motives, watching your thoughts, realigning your intentions. This is the shaking that lasts. Because even if the ground beneath your feet remains steady, the foundation within must be tested. If it is weak, it will break. If it is strong, it will shine. God is not trying to destroy what is built on truth, only what is built on illusion. And so this message must be heard again, not with the ears, but with the spirit. July 7 was not an event, it was a beginning. A crack in the surface of routine, allowing something sacred to rise. Not all will notice, not all will care. But those who do, they will never be the same. And again, not all will notice, not all will care, but those who do, they will never be the same. And again, not all will care, but those who do, they will never be the same. Sufi, Naha, Latte, because to see with the inner eye is to see what others miss. To live with awareness is to walk differently, speak differently, breathe differently. The trembling of the world will not end with one day. It will continue until the inner foundations are rebuilt, until the house within is strong enough to carry the storm enough. The outer world mirrors the inner world. What we see in nations is born in individuals. The outer world contains within a sense, contains, compass, contains, 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 contains. The world makes no sense, contains, 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 contains. What we suffer in society began in silence, when we allowed fear to overtake truth. This is why inner work is not selfish, it is sacred. Because when one person awakens, the world changes. When one person sees clearly, the illusion loses power. When one person builds on truth, the lies around them begin to crumble. That is the true revolution. That is the shaking that saves. And now the world stands at a threshold, not because of an external prophecy, but because of an internal reckoning. We can no longer pretend not to know. We can no longer distract ourselves with what is irrelevant. The time has come to ask hard questions, not about governments or policies, but about ourselves. Are we aligned? Are we living with purpose? Are we building our lives on what will endure or what will rot? The trembling asks these questions with every breath. The vision given on July 7 did not provide answers, it demanded response. And in your response lies your transformation. So let the earth shake, let the illusions fall, let the false identities dissolve. For what remains after the shaking is not weak, it is pure, it is unshakable, and it is ready to live not in fear, but in truth. This is not the end of the world, it is the end of pretending. And in that ending, a new life begins. One not based on shadows, but on the eternal flame that has always burned within. Now is the time to return to it, before the shaking becomes unbearable, before time closes its invitation. The message has been given. The world will never be the same. Let the work begin within.